Wow. Hey everybody, Steve here, and I want to thank you guys for joining us today for this Lunch and Learn. I'm going to have a great topic for you, and going to be going through a topic that we all need to know how to do. And it's not as complicated as oftentimes we think it is. We're going to talk about that today. Just giving a couple minutes to let more people get on. We got a good crowd that signed up today to watch this. So we're going to be giving you some great stuff. Communicating and negotiating with our sellers is key in what we're doing. If we want to be any type of an active investor out there, meeting and talking with people, it's very crucial that we know how to do that stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and then we'll get going here in just a minute. Okay, guys, so let me share here. Boom, we'll get back up there. All right, so like I was talking about just a second ago, having the skills to negotiate and communicate with your sellers it's everything that we do. And for a lot of us, if we listen to a lot of the gurus, we go to a lot of the seminars, they give you very long, complicated things to try and remember when we're meeting and talking with our sellers. And a lot of that information at the time that we're at the early stages of meeting with the seller or getting that first phone call, we don't need to know most of this information. And I'm going to go through this from that perspective. And I'm also going to, this is exactly how I talk with a seller from the first phone call till we close and everybody goes their merry ways. So, take heart of what we got going here today. So with that being said, I'm just going to jump right into it here. So the lead call comes in. This is where a lot of people have a lot of problems. So what do we do when the phone rings for that first time? The reality is most of the time we don't answer the phone. Why don't we answer the phone? Because most of us think that we're going to say something wrong. And trust me, I've been there. I know exactly what I'm saying here. We've got to remember that we're just talking to another person. But the reality of when I say most of the time we don't answer the phone because we're afraid we might say something wrong, I used to do this. I haven't done it in a long time, but I used to, when I would be out working on houses, driving around looking for deals or whatever, I would always write down the phone numbers on bandit signs. And when I would get 10 phone numbers off of 10 bandit signs, I would call all 10 numbers. Most of the time, I would leave messages every now and then. I would say out of the 10, maybe 2 people would answer the phone, which is not a big deal as long as they call you back when you leave a message. But the reality was I would average 3 calls back, which means 7 people were not calling me back. And this was consistent. This is a consistent number that I did over a period of time. I did that. And it really opened my eyes to the fact of how many times we don't answer the phone. And just with all the things that we do and all the people we talk to, people tell me that they don't answer the phone. People tell me they're afraid to answer the phone. So this is a fear that we've really got to get past. And that's why I'm spending just a little second here talking about this, because if we don't get past this, we'll never get anywhere. And I'm going to tell you and teach you some things today to help you do that, help you do just that. So if you don't know the answer, excuse me, if you don't answer the phone, then you're never going to have an opportunity to help somebody. So this is the first key of things that you need to change in your mindset. We are out there to help people. And that's how I always think about it. If I don't answer that phone, then how can I help somebody? And if we don't answer the phone, we're never going to have a chance of ever getting a deal, because we're not going to talk to anybody. So we've got to take that chance to have that opportunity. And, as many people that know me know, I never chase the dollars. I chase helping people. And so this is how I always think about it. We need to remember that they are calling you. They're calling you off of whatever marketing piece that you've sent out there. So that should take some of the intimidation out of the call right there for you. If they're calling you, well, let's find out why they're calling. And that's just from asking questions. And we're going to go into that in a lot more detail here as we go through this. But remember, when we answer the phone, all we have to do is be nice and be friendly. So when someone calls in, if I answer the phone, it's very simple. I say, "Hi, this is Steve. How can I help you?" I'm being nice, I'm being friendly, I'm being upbeat, and I'm asking them how I can help them. So that means if I've got a good motivated seller with that question I'm asking them, they're going to start giving me answers before I even start asking any questions. So I want to go through this. So I want you guys to start changing your mindset of how we're dealing with people, how we're dealing with this business. Because as I learned how to do this from following all the rules and steps of the gurus, once I started doing things like this is where I really started having much, much more success in our business. So this is very important. This is why I point this out to you, because it made all the difference in the world to us. And then it also made us sit down and start thinking of ways that we could be nicer and friendlier from that initial phone call. So, sorry, I thought I hit 2 slides there. So the first thing you need to do is make a good impression. Anytime anybody calls, we have to make a good impression. When we're on the phone, especially, you've got half a second to make that good impression. So by answering the phone saying, "Hi, this is Steve, how can I help you?" I'm immediately trying to put that good impression out there. At the same time, I'm talking with confidence in the way I'm saying it. And this is something that a lot of people come to me about. How do we talk with confidence? I don't have any confidence in what I'm doing. I don't have any confidence in talking on the phone. Well, I was there. I've been right there with you. So here's just some exercises and things that I did and things that I still do to this day, depending on what I'm doing. Because I was very inconfident of how I could answer the phone or maybe answer anybody's questions, I practiced. I would write down some random things that someone might ask me. Very basic things. Doesn't have to be complicated. And then I will go in the bathroom, close the door. I will start reading my questions and answering my questions to myself out loud so I can hear myself talking. And I'm also looking in the mirror because I want to see my facial expressions. This is going to help you tremendously in how you start communicating with someone. And when I've got something brand new that I'm doing and I'm not sure about it, and it's a subject if I'm teaching on a subject I don't know a lot about, or I'm not 100% confident in, this is what I am going to do until I get confident in doing that presentation. I practice, practice, practice. And this is what I did, especially in the beginning, because I like, man, I don't know what they're going to ask me. I might not know what the answer is. Well, if you don't know the answer, that's okay. You don't have to know all the answers. But the one thing that I always do also when I'm talking to that person and after making that first good impression and talking with confidence is I want to assure my sellers that I'm there to help them. Every single time, I always make sure that I let them know that I'm there to help them. They might be telling me about their situation, and my response back to them is going to be, I understand what you're telling me. What we need, I'm going to need to do a little bit of homework on this, on your property maybe, but no matter what, I'm going to do everything I can to help you. And if I can't personally help you, I'm going to do my best to find someone who can help you. And that goes a long, long way when you're saying things like that and talking like that to your sellers, especially on that first phone call. That makes a huge difference. Because we're looking for motivated sellers. We're looking for people that need help with their property or their whatever their situation is. And we'll talk a lot more about that here. So obviously we need to get some information from our sellers. So how do we ask questions so our sellers are willing to give us the answers? How do we ask questions in a non-threatening manner? That was the real game changer for us, because any of you out there that are listening to this and have gone to the 2-3 day seminars and listened to all the gurus, and they give you these long scripts that are a page and a half that has so much garbage on there that you don't need to find out on that initial call. I throw all those in the garbage. I didn't at first, but now I throw them in the trash. So let me give you an example on to wait to ask something non-threateningly to get the response that you want to. Now, all of you know that on all of your questionnaires you're getting from your gurus, every one of them have on there that you've got to find out how much that seller owes on that house before you get off the phone. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that over the years. Well, we don't have to know exact numbers like they tell you do. But this is how I'm going to approach that. I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, how long have you owned your house? And let's say in this example, they say, well, I've owned my house for 30 years. First thing I'm going to do is go, man, that is fantastic. You must have been so proud the day you paid that house off. I know if it had been me, I'd have been jumping up and down. I was so happy I paid my house off. Now you're going to get a wide variety of responses, but I'll give you 3 typical responses that you'll get from your seller. Your seller's going to say, the day we paid this off, it was the greatest day ever. We're so blessed to have this house paid off. This was fantastic. Or you might get a response like, we had the house paid off, but we needed a little bit of cash. So we did a small cash out refi. So we owe a little bit, we owe $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 on the house. Or you might get, well, we had the house paid off, but we did a full cash out refi last year. And, now we got cash in the bank. We're happy. So what does that tell you from those type of responses? First off, see how I never asked them how much they owed on the house. That was the first thing I never did. But then in the responses that they gave me, it gave me the answer that I needed to know. And the answer is, do they have any equity in the property? If we move forward on this talking to them, is there equity in the property? Well, with the first 2, there's equity in the property, probably. Number 3, probably no equity in the property. So it's going to help you guide where you need to go. And my point to that is, on all the questionnaires, they tell you you've got to have that exact number. I could care less what that exact number is at this point. I'm trying to find out if there's equity. And now I know if they've got equity in the property or not. And it was a fun conversation. I was building them up, and I never once asked them how much they owed on their house. So think about that. think about take all these questions and change those questions and make your questionnaire very, very small and short. Our questionnaire is tiny, tiny, because I'm trying to do nothing but build rapport and find out a little bit of information. So what's the information do we really need when we're talking to our sellers on that first conversation? Well, we want to make sure that we get the best contact information for the sellers. That's really important. And the reason I say that is because, in the beginning, I'd get excited when I'd get on the phone with somebody, and sometimes I'd forget to get some of this information. And so, I got to where, I'd have a list in front of me, so I knew what information I wouldn't forget something. We obviously need to get the property address. Like I said, I've been talking to sellers and I'm excited about going out and meeting with them and get off the phone and I forgot to ask them for the phone number. So it happens. So, and then I always ask why they're considering selling their home. I'm not asking them why they're selling their home. And this goes back to a non-threatening way of asking a question. Why are you considering selling your house, Mr. Seller? Because the reasons are going to vary with everybody you talk to. Well, I'm considering selling this house because, my kids are growing up. I got to put them in college. We don't have any money, or my parents are sick, or, I've got financial problems. By asking in that non-threatening manner and why they're considering, you're going to get a lot better response from your sellers. And then based on whatever that their answers are, then, what's the condition of your property? And we've got to understand we're looking for motivated sellers, and they're typically going to want to give you this information. So, but don't be afraid to ask. But so you see how I've changed, how I've asked all those questions, and I get very good responses from my sellers by changing my tone and changing the way I'm asking the question. So making an appointment or getting off the phone. This is something that we all need to know, because way too often we keep staying on the phone. We keep trying to make something happen when we're talking to a seller, when they call in. And when I do role playing with people, and I've done it at our meetings, I've done it in classes, and when someone wants to role play with me, and hi, Mr. Seller, how can I help you? And they're very short with me. The seller's very short with me, or they want to play the position of, just give me a price. I just need a price for my house. Well, could you please give me the address of your property so I can look at where your house is, so I can see what I can offer you? Oh, no, just give me a house. Give me a price. Just give me a price. Well, when we get phone calls like that, first and foremost, we do not have a motivated seller here. So my response back to them is going to be, well, first off, if they want a price and I've got to give them a price, I'm going to be ridiculous. I'm going to say, well, Mr. Seller, since I don't know where your property is, I don't have your address, I can't look up any information to, guide me, I'm going to have to go really low. It's embarrassing, but I'm going to have to go really low on my offer. And I would only be able to offer $5,000 or $10,000 because I don't know anything about your property. Well, you're going to get several responses from a seller when you say something like that. They're going to hang up on you. They're going to want to argue with you, or they're going to laugh at you. And in either case, you need to end that conversation. So my next response is going to be something like, well, Mr. Seller, obviously, our models aren't going to work. You want something way different than what I can offer, and there's nothing wrong with that. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you have a great day. Get off the phone. And when I'm doing a role playing and someone wants to play the hard-nosed seller with me, I get off the phone with them. Right there. It's the shortest conversation in a role play that you'll ever have. But we're not looking for people to give us a hard time. We're looking for motivated sellers. We're looking for people that need help with whatever their situation is, and we're solving their problems or helping them solve their problems. But oftentimes we want to stay on the phone. We want to try and argue with them, or we want to try and make something happen that's not there. You're wasting your time when you do that. get off the phone, move on. There's so many other great things to do out there. So just keep that in mind. So making an appointment, getting off the phone. When a motivator seller calls you, they're willing to give you information about themselves. And that's what we have to realize. It's so easy to know if someone really is a motivated seller. Oftentimes, we don't even have to ask questions in the beginning. They just start giving us information. Sometimes we've got to slow them down a little bit. You know, and you know, when we've got a motivated seller and they start giving us a ton of information, we're going to have to kind of dissect that to really break it down to what the real issues are. But that motivated seller is looking for help. And like I said from the very beginning, we are assuring them when we answer the phone that very first time that we're there to help them. So we've got to be very, very thoughtful of that. And this is the things that set you apart from everybody else out there. Motivated sellers want to hear that you're going to do everything you can to help them. So, you know, like I said, I don't know if I said this or not. I might have just been thinking it, but you know, a seller calls in, you know, hey, Mr. Seller, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to help you. Even if we don't work together, even if I don't do a deal with you, I'm still going to try and find someone that will help you and can point you in the right direction. And I do. I'm willing to do that and do that every single time. I never have a problem with that because I'm still helping that individual move forward for whatever their needs are. And guess what? Oftentimes we can't help everybody in every situation, but there's nothing wrong with still pointing them in the right direction. I think that's a fantastic thing to do. And we certainly try to do that every single time. And because that's the kind of stuff that will come back to you at some point. You may not have done a deal with that seller because you were kind to them, you pointed them in the right direction, you helped them out. They might know someone that needs your help and refer you. And I can't tell you how many times we've had that happen over the years. So that stuff does come back. I promise you that stuff comes back. And it's very, very wonderful when it does. And it always catches you by surprise when it does, which is even better. So are you prepared when you go out for an appointment? What do you take with you on an appointment? Well, that can vary. You know, I have a little packet that I put together on every single deal that I take with me to every single property that I go and look at. Always have, always will. And what I do is if the deal is in our CRM, then I print out a copy of our CRM. And that's, you know, the CRM is when a seller calls in and we gather all the information about that seller from our conversation. And that gives me some notes and ideas to go with. Excuse me. And if I'm not the one that answered that call when they first called in, then now it's giving me information to go off of when I call them back. So I'm going to print that out. That's going to be my top page. Then my second page is going to be HCAD or GCAD or Montgomery County or whatever county it is. I'm going to have the CAD that's going to give me the specifics about the property. Then beneath that are my comps. So I run all my comps on MLS, so my CRM or my CMA, and my map of where the properties are compared to my property. So I've got all that information right there with me. And then I have a picture from Google Maps of what the house looks like. So when I get there, I know I'm pulling up to the right house because I've knocked on the wrong door before. So that's my little packet. I take that with me on every appointment. And that packet's for me. It's not to give to my potential seller. It's for me, for my information. So I can go through this thing. And so if I need to write a contract right then and there, I've got the CAD. So I've got legal description, got the name that's on the CAD, got all that information right there with me. I've got my comps, so I know exactly where my numbers need to be. All I'm looking at are what are the repairs on the property to add that number into whatever my offer is going to be. I'm very prepared when I go. So that's very important. Then on top of that, how well did you listen to your seller on the phone? What did your sellers tell you in your initial conversation of information that you might need to bring some sort of additional information with you? Very important, based on the conversation, what did you learn about that seller? Most of the time, we don't listen well. And the greatest salesmen in the world are always the best listeners. And then acting on what they are telling you, because it's about them. It's not about you, it's about them. So listen very carefully as you are talking to somebody. And when they say specific things about whatever their situation is, something that you might be able to bring with you that just gives you that upper hand when you're talking with them. Because I guarantee you, most people never pay any attention to what their sellers are saying, because they're trying to get out there and give them their little spill first. So pay close attention. It will take you to wonderful places in your conversations. So meeting with the sellers for the first time. This is scary for a lot of people, but this is where I love when I get to go out and meet with my sellers, because this is where you need to shine. We need to build off of our conversation on the phone. We need to build that rapport and that relationship from that first conversation. So as nice and as friendly as you were on the phone, you've got to be nicer and friendlier when you meet them in person, because now we're standing face to face. You can see their facial expressions, and guess what? They can see your facial expressions. And guess what? Body language tells the truth every time. So if someone's uncomfortable, if they're uncomfortable with you, you're going to know it right away. And you never want to be in that situation. You always want to be nice and friendly. You want to be very, very open about why you're there and who you are. You want to be extremely honest with them. And we'll talk about honesty as we go through this as well, because I think this is really, really important. I've had, I've been on appointments, and, I left because, and I knew that my sellers had other investors that were coming to talk to them. And I'll get a call later that day, or I'll get a call the next day. And typically the conversation is going to be, so-and-so came out here and they actually offered us a little bit more than you're offering us. But, they didn't break anything down for us. They didn't tell us how things were going to work. They didn't explain things to us. And you spent all this time with us and you broke everything down. That's why we're calling you back, because we feel comfortable working with you. And even though they offer a little bit more, we feel that you can get the job done for us. I'll take that any day of the week. And I have taken more deals from other investors because of that over the years. And I've got certain investors I know out there that never want to know if I'm coming to look at a property that they're looking at, because they know that I'll be very honest with that seller and I'll let them know exactly what we're looking at here. So keep that in mind. After I meet with the seller, we got to walk the property. So I always ask if I can walk the property. And typically when I show up to a house, I'm going to ask, let me look outside really quick. Take me, just a couple minutes. And then I'll come in, we'll walk the inside of the house, then we'll sit down and talk. And, walking the outside of a house, I mean, you're looking at the roof. If it's a brick, you're looking for cracks. You look at the HVAC, you look at the soffits, you look at the facer boards. I mean, doesn't take long at all. You can have a good evaluation of the outside of a house, in a few minutes, or I can anyhow. And you need to, because I don't want to spend a lot of time out there. I want to get back in front of my seller. I want to be with them. So as we start talking everything, I try to get them to show me all of the rooms. I want them to walk with me room to room. Now, it doesn't always happen. I've had sellers that I walk in the front door. They say, well, I'll be sitting here in the kitchen. You walk the house and come on back and we'll talk when you're done. so, so sometimes that happens, but I want them to walk the house with me. That way, as we're looking at the house and we can, you know, I'm still continuing to build that rapport with them. But now I can look at the house and, you know, the little things that we're seeing or big things that we're seeing that might be wrong with the house. We can talk about it and talk about it in a nice, friendly manner, not talk about it and be ugly or mean, because you never, ever want to do that. But just being truthful and honest about it and asking, oh, you know, well, I see that the ceiling in the bedroom's laying on the floor. Man, must have been a pretty nasty water leak. Was it from your roof, or was that a water line, or was that a drain line from your AC? You know, be sympathetic to it, but you got to be honest about it. And of course, your sellers know that they've got that problem. Even if they say the house is in beautiful shape, they know they've got the problem. But the way you handle it is everything. But also, as I'm walking that house and talking with my sellers, I'm looking around for things that we might have in common in their house. Could be pictures, could be pictures of kids at sporting events or camping events or hiking events or whatever. I could walk into a house. Man, I love it when I walk into a house and somebody's got some deer mounts on the wall. Or they got some fish mounted on the wall, because I'm an outdoorsman and I do all that stuff. So it opens up all these wonderful conversations that you can just start talking to them about that have nothing to do with that house. Because now you're really building rapport. Now you're really building a relationship and a bond with an individual based on something that has nothing to do with their house. These are the little things that will separate you from everybody else. And now we can talk about that. Hey, I see that, you know, your kids are, you know, playing baseball. How's the team doing? You know, whatever the case may be. These are things that just really, really open up the door. And I'm telling you, most people out there, most investors out there looking at properties do none of these things. They're in there talking as fast as they can, trying to get a low price in front of that seller and get them to sign a contract. Be different. You know, it's funny because people have asked me over the years many, many times, how long do you spend with a seller when you go to meet with them? And my simple answer is however long I need to. I've met with sellers that took 10 minutes. I've met with sellers where I sat there for 2 hours. It doesn't matter to me because I'm there to help them. I'm not chasing the dollars. Totally different perspective. And this is how you are going to be able to get deals that most people don't get. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but it's the truth. And I'm telling you this because most people don't do it. And if you start doing things like this will separate you from everybody else. So, reading the seller's personality. This is something that I think is really important. This is something I learned a long time ago, and it's difficult. It's really difficult, and sometimes we don't get it right. But you know, the more we can learn about the personality of our sellers, this is going to help us a lot as well. And this all starts when we're talking to them on the phone. It really is going to go even farther when we meet with them face to face. But you know, there's you know, a bunch of different kinds of personality tests out there with, you know, different letters of different things. But I kind of do it as, you know, an aggressive personality. I would call that an A-type personality. That's someone like myself. I don't want to listen to necessarily a lot of stuff. I don't need an abundance of education on something if it's something I know. You know, let's get down to business. So when you have that type of a seller, then this is the type of seller that you better be prepared to give them a price, give them an offer before you leave the house. Because if you don't, then they'll dismiss you immediately. And then we have the personality, the person that likes to take care of everybody. So you know, they never take care of themselves. They're always taking care of everybody else. well, this is a seller that we might need to coddle them a little bit more, and um, you know, work through whatever their issues are with them a little bit more. Um, and this is very common. This is where we have to be a lot more patient with this type of a person. Um, they've got a lot of emotions about the house, about memories. Actually, I just closed on a property an hour and a half ago, and with my seller, an elderly woman, who uh, you know financially she's fine and everything, but she had a lot of emotions with getting rid of her house. But it was time. It was really time. So I worked through her and her granddaughter, and I've had lots of conversations with them through the process. And just, and I've just been patient. Hey, whatever your time frame is, you just let me know. And that's what I've told them the entire time. And it was really, really wonderful. When we closed today, after we signed, we were still sitting in the room, closed room, and typically I'm never at close with any of my sellers or buyers. I go in and sign, they go in and sign. But this was a situation where I felt it was very important that I was there with my seller when we signed, just to talk. And our granddaughter was there as well. And after we got done, sitting there, she said, I don't want to get emotional because she'd been kind of fighting that. But she said, Steve, I just want to tell you that you made this process so simple and easy for me. I can't thank you enough. You put no stress on us whatsoever. You and your title company took care of everything. And we're sitting here right now. I am so thankful that we met you and we were able to get this done. I mean, that's powerful. That's really powerful when your sellers tell you that. And it really means a lot to me because I take that very personal. So this is, when we have these type of people, we need to take our time. We need to, work through whatever. And then we've got our analytical type personality. This is going to be more of your engineer minded person, your computer tech minded person. This is the person that needs a lot more information. They need to be educated. They need to analyze things. And we need to provide them with the information that they can analyze in their head so they can make the best decision possible. So with the first type personality, this is a person you're going to have that contract in hand with you. When you go and meet with that person, you're going to be giving them an offer before you leave. The next two, you don't even throw a number out there. If you throw a number out there to these people on that first meeting, you're probably going to be dismissed immediately. They're not at that point yet. They're not anywhere near that level yet. Now, the person the second one, person that needs a little bit more coddling, they're going to want that number probably a little bit sooner than the analytical person will. But you have to ease your way into it. And with the person that has lived in that house a long time and has a lot of emotional ties to it, you're probably going to need to start a little bit lower on your offer so you can come up on your offer and make them feel much better, in your negotiations. The analytical person, they're going to be basing a lot of where they want to be on that house based on the information that you give them, what you teach them and educate them on about their property, about the situation, about the market, whatever the case may be. So personalities are very important, and we may not be 100% on any of these, and sometimes I'm not 100% on any of them. But by having a good idea about it, it helps me in how I approach that seller before I ever get to the house. So keep that in mind as well. So sitting down with the seller. So now it's time to get down to business. So if if you've been a good listener, you should have a pretty good idea of where you need to take your negotiations, depending on what the seller situation is. I mean, we had a seller one time that I was negotiating one direction, and then as we started talking, their real goal was they wanted to buy another house, and they needed a specific amount of money for the down payment that they were determined they were going to put that much money down on that property. So in that situation, the total sales price of the property went out the window. It was all about, could I put that down payment, that much money in their pocket for them to move to the next house that they wanted. So I had to do some fancy dancing on my feet because I wasn't prepared for that, but I was able to switch very quickly in my negotiations. And I don't remember what the dollar amount was. I think they needed like $15,000. They wanted to put $15,000 down on this house. And it may have been 20. I don't remember, but I just, well, hold on, Mr. Sellers, let me look at my numbers. You know, while I'm sitting there and I get my calculator out and I start looking at my numbers, I'm like, I can do that. I can put that much money in your pocket when we close on this deal, because I'll pay your closing costs. I'll do whatever. I can put that much money in your pocket. So it took the sales price of the property out of the picture. So you never know how you might need to shift your negotiations, but because I was paying attention and I was listening to what they were saying and not just trying to cram a number down their throat, we got that deal, and it was a great deal. It was a fantastic deal. So think about that as you start to sit down and talk to them. Does the seller need more education? Do they need more information? What's their time frame? And then and et cetera. It could be a million other different questions or situations or things that we need to be thinking about or talking to them about. And don't be afraid to ask the questions. Let them tell you what they're telling you. And if you might be the one that needs more information. So if you need more information, just ask. Your sellers are going to give you the information. They're going to tell you, if they know that you're there trying to help them, they're going to give you every bit of information you need to know as well. Every single time they'll do that. So don't let that kind of stuff get in your way at all. Please don't let it get in your way. So the first thing I do when I sit down with my sellers is I explain who I am. I go through the entire process of who SVSM is. We talk about how we do business. If we do a deal, I'm going to write if we agree on a number, then I'm going to write a contract. And I always let them know I use the TREC 1 in 4 residential contract. And I always say that's the same contract that our realtors use. And I tell them, if someone's giving you a 1-page contract or a 2-page contract, you should throw it in the trash, because they have no legal obligation to close on any of those contracts. Those contracts have so many holes in them, it's not even funny. So I explain all that to them, explain exactly how we're going to do business. If we agreed on this, I'm going to write this contract, get the contract written. We initial all the pages, we sign page 9, and then I'm going to send this to my title company. After I execute, on the execution date, I'm going to execute the contract, and this is going to go to our title company. Then I walk them through the process of, title company is going to open title. That's so we can make sure we don't have any liens or anything like that. I know, which I'm sure we don't in this situation, but we still have to go through all the proper steps. And if it's a situation where I know my sellers do have some issues on title, then I'm telling them, if we've got issues, we're here to work through those issues with you. I'm not going to leave you high and dry. We're going to do everything we can to get these issues solved so we can still move forward and get this property sold and closed on this deal and put money in your pocket. I walk through all those different processes. If it's an airship affidavit situation, I walk them through how the airship affidavit process works. If it's liens, I walk them through the process for liens. And then when we send everything into the title company, they're included on that initial email where we send the contract to the title company, and I'm asking my title company to open title on the property. There's no secrets whatsoever. I explain to them exactly what we're doing, exactly how we work. And this gives them a comfort level beyond belief, because there's nobody else out there that's telling them this stuff. I promise you, no one ever tells them how you work as a company. Makes such a difference. I mean, I can't tell you how much it helps. So now it's time to start negotiating with sellers. First thing as I do is I start talking about their situation. Does the house need a lot of work? Well, we've determined that by walking it. So we're going to talk about the different types of work that might need to be done on the house. And I might, depending on the seller, if I've got a estimating worksheet sometimes that I'll take. I don't use it that often anymore because I know my numbers pretty well, but depending on the situation, sometimes I'll just take it in there because it makes me look better by having it. And I'm checking my little boxes, and I might be putting some numbers down on the number column. And then we can sit and talk about those numbers if we need to. And I want to have their buy-in. Well, we're going to need to replace the roof. We got a lot of problem there, and your air conditioner doesn't work, so we're going to have to replace this unit. So I talk to them about that stuff. We work through that stuff, and I'm putting a number in front of them, and I want them to see how I'm looking at that property. And then sometimes the house is in great shape. We've bought houses where the house was not the problem at all, but my sellers had some financial problems. Maybe they were in debt up to their ears. They're getting ready to be foreclosed on. They got the car companies, wanting to repossess the cars. Whatever the case may be, we're going to talk about those problems. Let's lay this out so we can look at it and see how we can help try and solve those problems. And most of the time, we always can solve those problems. Sometimes we can't. I mean, let's just be real about it. Sometimes nobody can solve their problems, but most of the time, we can solve their problems. So we start talking about the solutions to their situation. And this is where you might be at the house for a while. You might be there for a couple hours working through this stuff. But this is what we have to do. And this is what's going to get you a deal. This is what's going to get you a referral. Referrals are the greatest thing in the world, because when someone refers you, it's up to you to screw it up and nobody else. So referrals are fantastic. And this is what we've built a lot of our business on over the years. We get referrals and have gotten referrals over the years. I have no idea how many times, but it's every time we get a referral, we get that deal closed for our seller. I can think of maybe once or twice we weren't able to get a deal done. We weren't able to agree with the seller that was referred to us, but many, many, many times we've gone in. And actually the deal I just told you about that I closed this morning, that came from a referral. That deal came from a referral. So I'm personally invested even more so in those types of deals with my sellers. So now you start your negotiations, and now we can talk about what we can offer. We can talk about their time frame. Now, what I want you to really notice through everything I've been talking about up to this point, going and meeting with the sellers, looking at the properties, talking about the situation, talking about solutions, all that stuff comes first. I haven't even brought up a number yet. We're not even talking about any numbers up until the very end. because the more I can help them, the less that number becomes the issue. And if you're paying attention to how I've put this presentation together about how we work, I'm doing all those other things first. Everything else first. Now it's time to talk about what we might be able to offer on the property. Now we're talking in more depth of the time frame that they may need to sell this property. Do we need to get it done in a week or two? Do we need to extend it an additional month for whatever reason, to maybe help you move things out or whatever the situation is? And at the same time, we never stop letting them know that we're still there to help them. It's very obvious at this point that because you have been doing all that, we just want to continue to always let them know that. And now we're talking about the numbers. Now's the time to finally start talking about some numbers. And as I break it down for them, when I'm talking about numbers with my sellers, I let them know, if I take this property, and let's say the property needs a lot of work, I'm going to put this much money into the property to be able to sell it around this range. I never give an exact number because we don't really know. So I'm going to give them, well, if I can sell this house, if I have it looking 100%, I mean, just totally rehab, looking the most beautiful house in the neighborhood, we might be able to sell it for, about 235, 240. But the way I'm going to have to work my numbers to see what I can offer you for this, I've got a lot of holding cost when we buy this property. I'm going to have taxes, insurance. I'm going to pay your closing costs. We're going to have utilities. When we sell it, I'm going to have the closing costs again. I'm going to have commissions. I've got a lot of cost, behind the scenes cost that's going to come out of my pocket. So I have to put all those numbers together. And then I have to put the numbers together for what I think it's going to cost me to rehab this house. And once I do that, then that's going to tell me what I could pay you for this house. Now that you know my process and how I'm going to work this, does that work for you? Does that sound fair that I do that, and so I can give you the best offer I can? And I've never had a seller tell me no. Never had a seller tell me no. And I'm being super honest with them. I'm telling them exactly what I'm doing. The same thing might happen if, let's say, I want to wholesale the house. I'm going to have a very similar type of a conversation. I'm not going to tell them that I need to bring contractors in and I'm going to close on the house and all this nonsense like you hear all the time. I'm very honest with them. I tell them, Mr. Seller, yeah, I think that, I think we can get pretty close to the number that you need for your house. Now, this number, where you have to be, it might not work for our criteria for our company, but I still think it's a pretty good number. So if you would allow me to, I've got a lot of other investors that I work with, and I would be more than happy to, if we can get this under contract, I'd be more than happy to get in touch with these other investors I work with, bring a few of them out here to the property to see which one of them might get to partner with me on this deal. And then I would have them be the final person that closes on this property with you. Now, if we do that, you keep in mind that I'm going to stay in charge of this project from start to finish. We're still going to be going through my title company. I'm going to be working with you. I'm going to be working with the buyer. I'm going to be working with our title company to make sure everything runs smoothly and you have no issues. Does that sound like that might be something that works for you? I can promise you I've never had a seller tell me no. When you're honest and upfront, sellers will work with you. Now, did I tell them that I was going to wholesale the house? No, I used different language for that. And you need to, so they understand. But now they know I'm going to bring one of my partners or 2 or 3 or 4 of my partners out there to look at the house to see who I can get to work with me on this deal. That's how you wholesale a property and talk to a seller correctly, in my opinion. Excuse me. Sorry. So, what skills do you need as an investor who's going to be active and be out talking with sellers? And I've gone over all these, and these are the three top things I think that you need to be able to do. And if you don't do them, or you don't do them well, or you've never done them, then we've got to practice them. But we've got to listen. We've got to have good listening skills. Good listening skills are so important in what we do. And this is something that might take practice. It's not something that I started off doing great. Trust me, I did not start off doing it great at all. As a matter of fact, when we first started doing this, and I was in there talking to sellers, and I didn't know this. Susan told me this several years down the road. But when I was in on the phone in my office talking to sellers, Susan oftentimes would be standing out in the hallway and just cringing at what was coming out of my mouth, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Oh, I can't believe he said that." But then about a year went by, and she was outside listening to me talking to somebody on the phone, and she's like, he sounds like he might know what he's talking about now. So it takes time. But if we don't start and we don't get out there and do it, it's never going to get done. And it's okay if we stumble. It's okay if we don't sound 100%. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's how we get better and better and better. And I also was practicing in front of the mirror a whole bunch as well. So keep that in mind. And that's also how we're going to build our sales skills, because you do have to have some sort of sales skills. That is really important. And it was very important for me to really hone that skill in, because that was probably my hardest one right there. Now, a problem solver in corporate America, that's what I did. I was a problem solver. So that was the easy one for me. Let's lay it on the table. How can we figure this problem out? What do we need to do? That was an easy one for me. So, figure out where you are with these three topics. And to me, these are the three most important that most people have the least skills at and need to work on the most. That's why I put them up here. Now, I mean, I do all these very, very well, very well. But like I said, didn't happen overnight. Trust me, it didn't happen overnight. And you should know that by the little story I just told you. So guys, that is what I've got for you today for our workshop. I hope you have gotten lots and lots out of that. I hope we've got some good questions here. We'll get to that in just a second. As always, here's all of our contact information. If anybody has any questions, by all means, give us a call, send us an email. More than happy to answer anything that any way we can help you. As always, a copy of my Private Lender Roadmap book is available online for the ebook at any time. If you want a hard copy, you can let us know as well. And then our YouTube channel, I've got all kinds of different videos that we've put out there for who knows how long, on just all kinds of different things about real estate and how we do it and how we think about it, all that kind of good stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and share this screen and open up my camera. And everybody, here I am again. Eric, do we have some questions?
Hey, yeah, we sure do. We had a couple come in while you were talking. The first question we've got here is about the time frame for closing the contract.
Mm-hmm.
What if a person needs to close in a few months? Can I maybe still help them now?
By all means. We have done that before. What we do, we've put properties under contract where we didn't close for a couple months for a specific reason with the seller, but you want to go ahead and get it under contract. Let me see. We had a couple that she was retiring. I think I was talking to him like in January, February one year, and she wasn't going to retire till April. And I don't remember what the date was. So she said, could we push the closing date to a week after I retire? By all means, more than happy to do that. It's because we were both good. I could pay them what they needed for the house, had no problem with that. And so when we wrote the contract out, we just put the closing date, let's just say April 15th. And so then when we sent it to the title company, because I explained to them, let's go ahead and get all the title work done. So when we get to that date, man, all we got to do is go to the title company and close. Nobody has to do anything. So we did that. And then of course, when I sent it into the title company, I let them know, hey, we've got this date pushed quite far. So let's get all the initial stuff done, then put this over in the hold file until we get closer. And then it was up to me to put it on my calendar, make sure I stayed on top of it. So as it got closer, I could contact everybody again. And then at the same time, then through that period of time, I would just call and check in with my sellers every couple of weeks. Just more of a, hey, how's it going, guys? Anything you need? Anything I can do for you? Just a friendly conversation. I was on the phone for 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most. And it just was I was just staying in contact with them, letting them know I'm still here, letting them know everything's fine. So yes, by all means, you can do that. And I know that was kind of a long-winded way of telling you that. What else we got, Eric?
Sure. So we have a pretty short question here. Someone just wants to know, you mentioned a contract. What was the name of that contract again? And they said something about Trek
Yes,
contract.
yeah. You can go on the Real Estate Commission's website, and you can actually download this contract. It's a Trek 1 and 4 residential contract. It's the same contracts that the realtors use, but we've got to be careful because there are the Trek contracts and then there are the TAR contracts. You have to be a licensed real estate agent to use any of the TAR contracts. You cannot use any TAR contracts, but you can use the Trek contracts. And the Texas Real Estate Commission allows us as individuals, as investors, to use that contract. And they actually want you to use it. And I can tell you that same with our title company, same with our attorneys. They want us to use that contract. The Texas Real Estate Commission, all those very expensive lawyers created this thing. It's a very good contract. It's I think it's 11 pages now. But it's an easy contract. Go through, read it, learn how to fill it out. It takes me 5 minutes to fill one out. It's really, really easy once you learn it. And one of the ways that helped me learn it was talking to my title company and having them explain certain things. And sometimes something will come up and I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Explain to me why it says this or what the meaning is of that. So there's lots of different ways, but the 1-page contracts, the 2-page contracts, those things are garbage. And I'm saying that from my personal opinion. And I know that if I come up against another investor when I'm looking at a property and they've submitted that to my seller, I'm going to rip holes in it in every way, shape, and form that you can imagine. And I'm going to make that seller so skeptical that they're probably throwing it in the trash. So Trek 1 and 4 residential contract. Okay, Eric.
Great. Yeah, the last question here. Do you have a checklist of things you look for when you do a walkthrough of a property? And how can I develop my own checklist?
Oh, well, I don't really have a checklist. What I do, and because I've been doing it a long time, I did have one in the beginning. So when I'm walking a property, kind of think of it this way. There's always going to be the typical things that we have to do on every single property. So first, we're always going to paint the inside of a house. It's always going to need to be painted. 9 out of 10 times, we're always going to change out all the flooring. Those are givens. We're probably going to be changing out all the light fixtures, all the plumbing fixtures. So all your ceiling fans, lights, receptacles, covers, all your faucets, bathrooms, kitchen faucets, water lines, water valves. All those are just typical things you're going to do on every single house. We certainly do. And then you're looking at things like, okay, the cabinets. Are the cabinets in good shape, but we need to put granite on them? If it's got laminate countertops, you're probably going to want to put granite on them. Let me see. And you're looking to see if the boxes, the cabinets, we call them the boxes, are still good. If they're still in good shape, you might not need to change them. Probably going to need to paint them though. You're going to need to paint the cabinets. We paint everything white. I just think it looks 10 times better. So those are typical things that you're going to do on every single house. Then things that your high ticket items that you need to take a look at. Do we think this house needs foundation work? Most of the time, there's some telltale signs for foundation. I can walk a lot of houses, and just by walking in the house, I can tell that something's off a little bit. So foundation and that, because that's an expense that can go all different directions. Based on the age of the house, what about the sewer pipes underneath the slab? If it's, or even if it's a pier and beam, doesn't matter. How old are those pipes under there? Are they PVC? Are they, cast iron? How long has that stuff been there? Because that's stuff that's going to be expensive to fix. If you've got to replace all the plumbing under your house, depending on who you're working with, that could be a $5,000 to $10,000 job. You're going to look at the roofs. How old is the roof? If the seller knows, you want to try and find that out. But look at that roof. Is the gravel coming off the roof? Do you need to replace that roof? Depending on the size of the house, it's going to depend on the cost. Depending on if you need to change any of the decking out, it's going to affect the cost. Those are the big ticket items there. HVAC. How old is that HVAC system? In the attic and your condensing unit outside. So those are the things that you're looking for. Water heater. I mean, we replace water heaters in just about every house. There's not too many houses we buy. That's actually the one that we got this morning has a brand new water heater in it. So that's a rarity. That's very rare. We just about change water heaters on every house. So that would be kind of a checklist I would start with. And then as you're walking a property, just kind of be observant of things. We're going to change all the doors. Typically, if it's an older house, just a flat panel doors, everything's going to have 6-panel or 2-panel doors throughout the house. And doors used to be something that were cheap as can be, but the price over the past couple of years has gone up pretty significant on that. And then all the hardware that goes with all that stuff. So that's going to be, as you start putting a checklist together, that's how I would think about it. And then just as you're looking at properties, as you get more experience, as you start doing whatever you're doing, add to it or take away from it. So that would be my suggestion on that. Anything else, Eric?
That's it.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining today. Hope you got a lot out of this. I tried to cover as many things as I can. I know that there are some things I probably left out. But this is what we do. This is what I have done for years when I'm out there talking to sellers, negotiating, communicating. This is how we go about it. And this is what has always separated us from so many others for the better. So there's nothing else, guys. And go out and have a great week, a great rest of this month, and a fantastic year. And we will see you on the next workshop in about 2 or 3 months. We don't have one scheduled yet, but we'll let you know when we do. Till then, guys, have a good one.